Do you feel lost at work? Feel like you're just going through the motions, but your work's having no impact and it doesn't have a greater meaning beyond what you're doing in your company? So you start to question what you might do instead. How would you make a living doing it? And if you do leave, will you definitely feel more fulfilled? I felt the same way when I left my corporate job, and the same again 3 years later when I was leading a company that I co-founded, and then again another 5 years later when I decided to sell my online business. Every time I felt lost, I've used multiple strategies to help get myself unstuck and figure out what was the next right move. I'm going to share with you a 4-step process which helps you to reflect on who you are and what might be a good next move for you. Because it's normal for us to change, and what was the perfect job for your past self may not be the perfect job for who you are now. If you've been feeling lost at work for a while, you can start to feel really demotivated and flat. You might lose a passion for your hobbies and interests, but work isn't all that you are, and it's time to reconnect with the things that light you up. That's what this first activity looks at. It can be hard to feel inspired to think about different career options when you're not in a good place. So instead of starting with a blank sheet of paper and trying to be creative about the types of jobs you might like to do, think about the things that you're already interested in, or were interested in before work made you feel so rubbish. A good place to start is taking a look at your bookshelf or your Kindle library and looking at the kind of books you enjoy reading. If you're not a reader, what kind of YouTube channels do you subscribe to? Do you listen to podcasts? What TV shows do you watch? Do you subscribe to any magazines? These are likely the kind of things you can talk for hours about, and you're really excited when you meet someone with the same interests as you. The second thing to look at is any hobbies that you have, whether that's crafting or sport or music, and think about any social clubs you're a part of where you get to engage in these activities. Reconnecting with your interests can be helpful to think outside the box when thinking about a career change or changing industries, where you already have an interest and some knowledge and experience, even if it's not from work. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to become a pop star or an amazing sports person. Not that you couldn't do that. Now that you've got a list of interests, what do you do with it? Well, step 2 can help with that. We've all heard the argument that if you find work that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So people say things like follow your passion. But then there's the other side of the argument, where people say never turn your hobby into a job because then you'll come to hate it. So what's right for you? I turned my hobby of tabletop gaming into an online business. And it didn't lead me to hate gaming. I still love it. But I did eventually decide to sell the business because I didn't find it fulfilling. And just because I was working in the gaming industry didn't mean that I was playing games all day. So instead of thinking about the industry that the job is in, think about the day-to-day tasks that you'll be doing. There are 2 ways to approach finding out what kind of tasks you enjoy. The first is to think about the type of tasks that put you in your flow state. Those times where you don't even notice time is passing because you're really enjoying the task that you're doing. These are usually things that are at the right level of challenge for you, where you're having to think and engage with what you're doing and you're not bored. But at the same time, they're not too difficult that you're out of your depth and you can't make any progress. For me, this happens when I'm creating content. For you, that might mean running a workshop or designing some business strategy. Try to be as specific as you can about the type of tasks that get you into a flow state, because they're not all created equal. For example, I get into flow state when I'm writing non-fiction, but as soon as I come to write fiction, it's completely different. I find it really difficult. So even though they're both writing, they're very different types of work. Think about this in terms of your current role and roles that you've had in the past. The second thing is to just list out the kind of jobs that you enjoy doing. These may not get you into a flow state, but you will still like doing them. For example, you may enjoy traveling for meetings, or looking for inefficiencies in processes, or get real satisfaction by making numbers balance in a spreadsheet. Now you have a list of interests and a list of tasks you enjoy. It's time to think about the final piece of the puzzle, which most people ignore when thinking about a career change. I mentioned earlier that writing non-fiction is one of my flow state tasks, but writing blog posts for my board game website was very different to writing training materials for a blue chip company. So in this activity, think about the type of work environments that you enjoy. To do this, I like to make a really simple table of 2 columns of just like and don't like, and just think about the things that I enjoy and don't enjoy about different types of work environment. This usually leads to a natural opposites in each column. In the likes column, I might have working alone, and in the dislikes column, I might have leading a team. In the likes column, I'd say I prefer working inside, which means that dislikes would have outside in it. I'll put a link in the description to my website where you can find a list of things to think about for this likes and dislikes activity. When you look at your table, there'll be some things in there that are absolutely non-negotiables. For me, that would be working nights or working shift patterns. For you, that might mean you always want to be around to pick your kids up from school, or you don't want to travel for work. Highlight these non-negotiables in some way. So now you know what kind of industry you might want to work in, the type of tasks you might want to do, and the type of work environment you want to have. It's now time to combine these and explore them. One way to get thinking about how your interests can combine with the tasks that get you into flow state is to create a really simple matrix. So put all your interests along the x-axis, and then put all of your tasks that get you into flow state down the y-axis, and then write down the jobs that come to mind when you combine the two. This can give you a starting point for the next step in exploring these types of roles. Take a look at job specs from some of the large companies in each of the industries and see whether the roles and responsibilities in these documents are things that you would enjoy doing. You could also have a chat with ChatGPT and see what it suggests. Tell it the kind of industries you're interested in and all the tasks that you enjoy doing, and see what jobs it comes back with. And while all these things are great, they don't really beat having a real conversation with somebody who's doing the kind of job that you're interested in doing. Before I started my board game website, I mentioned what I was planning on doing to a few friends. And until that point, I didn't realise that one of my friends had an automotive blog, and they were really happy to share with me how they got it off the ground and how it made money. So take a look at your network on LinkedIn or other social media sites. If there's no one in your network you can talk to about the kind of jobs you're interested in, then join online communities and ask in there. So you could just put a post up on Reddit. You could even ask to DM people to follow up and get a bit more information if they seem willing to help. When you're chatting with someone about what the job role's really like, remember to ask them about the bad bits as well, because every job, no matter how good it looks from the outside, is going to have some bad bits. And you need to figure out whether the trade-off of those bad bits are worth it for the good stuff. When I spoke with my friend about his online car blog, he explained that the worst thing for him was being so dependent on Google for all of his traffic and therefore his revenue. And he talked about how this influenced what he did on a day-to-day basis. There are two other things you can do to explore a potential career option. The first one may not be possible if you're working full-time, and that's to volunteer or do some work shadowing or an internship. The second option might be more viable because you can be more flexible about when you do it. And that's to start a side hustle doing the thing that you're interested in. You could create an account on something like Fiverr or Upwork and offer your skills to other people. You could do a few jobs on there and see how you feel about it. When I sold my tabletop gaming website recently, I went through these 4 steps and I couldn't decide between 2 different paths. One path was to follow my dream of releasing music, and the other was to start this channel about finding fulfillment in your life and work. Test the waters, I decided to start the YouTube channel about music, and after doing it for 6 months, I've decided that I want to focus on this one instead. You may have noticed with these 2 paths that one of them follows a passion and a hobby, but the other one doesn't, which brings us to that age-old question: should you follow your passion or not? It's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, so I'm going to make my next video all about that. Subscribe so that you don't miss it. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful.